I get it. You've been scrolling through endless subwoofer options, and every spec sheet looks like a maze of numbers that promise thunder but might just end up rattling your coffee table. You're probably wondering if dropping $1,000 on a KEF sub is worth the hype, or if you'd be better off with a smaller budget unit that still gives you that cinematic punch. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what it's like to actually live with the KEF KC92, why some setups will love it, and where it might feel like overkill. First off, the KC92 is not a plug-and-play add-in you slip behind a TV and forget about. It's a serious piece of a home theater or high-end stereo system, and that changes how you'll interact with it day to day. The moment you plug it in, you'll notice the sheer size of those two 9-inch drivers. They're built with a hybrid aluminum and paper cone, which KEF says helps the diaphragm stay rigid while still moving enough air for deep bass. In practice, that translates to a low end that you can actually feel in a medium-sized living room without the room shaking apart. I tested it with a mix of orchestral film scores and modern bass-heavy tracks, and the sub kept the rumble tight enough to enhance the music without turning the whole wall into a speaker. One of the biggest concerns people have is whether a sub that big will dominate the rest of the soundstage. The KC92's force-canceling driver design is meant to reduce unwanted vibration that can bleed into other speakers. In my setup, the front left and right KEF Q series speakers stayed clean and articulate even when the sub was cranked to its higher presets. That's a practical win for anyone who wants a clean, non-muddy center channel for dialogue in movies or precise bass notes in jazz recordings. Now, the amp. KEF lists a 1000-watt RMS rating, which sounds massive, and it is. The power means the sub can keep up with large screen sizes, think 75-inch 4K OLEDs or even projector screens without distorting at high volume. But if your viewing space is a modest 12-foot room, you might never need that much headroom. I found that once I hit about 70% of the volume knob, the sub was already delivering the depth I wanted for most content, and pushing it higher just added a little extra oomph that most listeners won't notice. So the extra power is there for future-proofing, but it can feel like an unnecessary expense if your room is tiny. Connectivity is another area where the KC92 tries to be flexible. It supports KEF SmartConnect protocol, which basically means you can stream audio from any device on your home network without needing a separate preamp. It also has traditional speaker-level inputs, so you can hook it up to a conventional AV receiver. In a real-world scenario, I used the SmartConnect route for a Bluetooth-enabled media server and the speaker-level input for the AV receiver when watching a Blu-ray movie. The transition between the two was seamless, and I never had to wrestle with latency or syncing issues. If you're already invested in a KEF ecosystem, the SmartConnect feature makes integration feel natural. If not, the standard inputs keep the sub compatible with any setup you already own. The built-in EQ presets are worth a mention because they're more than just marketing fluff. KEF programmed 5 different modes: cinema, music, game, bass boost, and a flat setting, each tweaking the crossover and internal DSP to suit typical content. I tried the cinema preset while watching an action film, and the low-frequency explosions felt punchy without overwhelming the dialogue. Switching to the music preset for a live-recorded concert kept the bass musical rather than boomy. The presets saved me time that I'd otherwise spend tweaking a separate external processor, and they're intuitive enough that you can change them with a quick press on the front panel or via the KEF app. So who should actually consider spending on the KC92? If you already have, or plan to get, a high-end KEF speaker system and you want a sub that can keep up with the clarity of those drivers, the KC92 is a logical match. It also shines for home theater enthusiasts with larger rooms who want that cinematic bass without resorting to multiple subwoofers or a dedicated bass room. Gamers who appreciate a tactile low-end in FPS or racing titles will notice the precise, non-muddy impact the sub provides, especially with the game preset. On the flip side, if you're on a tighter budget, have a small apartment, or are just adding a sub to a basic TV soundbar, you might be better off with a more modest 8-inch unit that costs a fraction of the price. The KC92's size and power can be overkill, and the price reflects that premium. Also, because it's a larger cabinet, you'll need a spot that can accommodate its footprint. Most people end up placing it against a wall or in a dedicated corner. If you lack that kind of space, you'll end up compromising on placement, which can lead to